there, welcome back, how are you? I'm Leah in Haddock with a free game retrospective. Now today we're going to be a little different. It's a 2-for-1, I mean, aren't you guys lucky? But it's also a bit of a mix of episodes, a free game retrospective and a cheap games no shame. So there's a definite link with these games, their subject matter. The red planet itself, Musk's grand target, Mars. Both games use real-world data and things like satellite imagery to provide your surroundings. Both are based on the idea of initial human habitation on Mars. Now, how do I do this? One game first? Both games together? Okay, so let's start with the game that I got for cheap. Take on Mars, or as my youngest calls it, Minecraft. With science. Take on Mars, created by Bohemia Interactive, who are a company, personally, I enjoy the releases of. You know, Armour, DayZ, and even showing my age here, Operation Flashpoint, Cold War Crisis. Now, obviously, Armour is a spiritual successor to Operation Flashpoint, but this was another one of those issues, happened a lot in the early 2000s, where a company owned the name, but the developers had cut ties. Another prime example of that, Championship Manager, and the split that then gave us Football Manager, and for a few years some really poor Champ Manager games. I truly loved a lot of the games that have released, and will admit that, they've kept up their good game ratio with me with Take on Mars. Take on Mars, firstly, is beautiful. The barren red wastes of Mars are beautifully rendered. The GUI looks like some things we've seen happen in real life, and you don't need a Starship level PC blasting to make it look good. That's one of the first things that stood out to me. The maps are actually quite large. Now, some of the areas aren't completely covered as, the actual real-world crater that you'll be based in is just too large. But each map is 16 kilometers squared, which when you think about it is huge. You'll be in actual places on Mars as well, such as the Gale crater, the Lyot crater, and the Victoria crater. But there's also some more, and there's not just Mars, because there's also the asteroid belt and the Mars moon of Deimos. Gameplay-wise, you've got your robotics and manned tutorials, which are definitely worth doing, as it will truly ingratiate you into this game's world and its mechanics. Then you've got the space program missions, separated into two branches, robotics and manned, like mentioned earlier. Robotics, you're starting from very basic probes to large rovers like Curiosity or Perseverance. The game isn't always the easiest, but to do well, you'll need to try and push your landers further to gain additional funds for upgrading. This will mean pushing landers to greater distances to ensure that your value per launch is high. It does have great info on the map showing how much a lander costs and the amount of money you've made from performing scientific missions, whether it's simply to explore or whether it's to take a sample or photograph of something specific. Manned missions are different. The storyline is based on Andy Weir's The Martian. Yep, you know the one that got turned into that film with Matt Damon. You were on the first mission to Mars and there was an accident leaving you, the sole survivor, with no contact to Earth. This is where my youngest mentioned it becomes almost Minecraft on Mars. It's not a bad thing, having to harvest resources and build items to survive and get home. It's a great take on the survival game genre. The use of realistic terrain based on actual satellite data gives it that appeal of the fact that a human landing on Mars could potentially happen within our lifetime. If you haven't picked up already, I'm really excited about space travel and exploration. I believe we're currently living in another golden age of rocketry and exploration that we haven't seen since the space race and the Cold War. I mean, having grown up in the 90s and noughties, other than the space shuttle, Proton and Soyuz launches that created the ISS, which, was a fantastic feat of human ingenuity and engineering, that was about it for exploration. Unfortunately, due to accidents, the space shuttle was then decommissioned, leading to very limited launches, which essentially boiled down to mainly Russian launches to keep the ISS running and manned. That was until organisations like SpaceX and Northrop Grumman Space Systems have developed and filled those roles. Where we are currently, we have the chance to watch in high definition live a human stepping out onto the surface of the moon within the next few years. I mean, obviously with the caveat of testing and changes being made, but if that doesn't excite you, I mean, the fact that we can watch a human being again walk on an extraterrestrial surface for the first time since Apollo 17 in 1972. Also, with the next launch of the SLS, it'll be the first time we've ever sent humans further than low Earth orbit since, again, Apollo 17. So, I mean, it does make you wonder if we had pursued further moon exploration from 1972 to now, where could we have potentially have been? Once you've conquered, or even before you conquer the space program, you can move through scenarios. Now, from what I understand, early on in the game's life, there weren't many options, but in the following years they added much more, including Jupiter's moon Europa in its final update. There's those options, and also via Steam Workshop and mod websites there are actually plenty of player-made options and mods to make the game even more replayable. Now we move on to Surviving Mars by whammy Games. Probably butchered that name. I mean, in 2021 the publisher revealed development had been moved to Abstraction Games. Speaking of, Surviving Mars is published by Paradox Interactive, publisher of such games as Crusader Kings, Hearts of Iron, Mountain Blade, and Cities Skyline. So if you're aware of those games, you likely have an idea as to the sort of worlds that they've published in the past. Oh yeah, and they published Airfix Dogfighter back in 2000. Don't know why I brought that up other than some vague recollection of playing a demo for it back in the day. But anyway, I digress. Differing from Take on Mars and its FPS vibes, this time it's a city builder stroke sort of survival game set on, wait for it, Mars. Amazing, right? I've got a theme for this episode. You're setting up the first colony on Mars. Now, depending on your nation's sponsorship, that sets your difficulty level, as those will be your starting funds. You'll be controlling drones that build the things needed to start a colony. Like with Take on Mars, there's quite a lot based on real-life data and technology, such as the Moxie system, which is currently on a technology demonstration run attached to the Perseverance rover. The Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, Moxie, has successfully tested a system to convert carbon dioxide from the Martian atmosphere into oxygen. Now, it was run 10 times, and at the end of testing it had created enough oxygen for a small dog to have enough oxygen for about 10 hours. Obviously, the system within the game is more of a finalised system and a lot bigger than what is currently being tested. Again, as a guy who gets excited about space exploration, the use of this and the rabbit hole that I then went into looking more into the system, I do believe that this game is a good thing to try and inspire the next generation of engineers and scientists. Now, I get it, we've all played city builders over the years, and good God, there's a plethora of cash cow, bastardized versions on mobile. But this is a bit more. You ain't just building your city, you're ensuring your colony's survival. This isn't just a case of once it's built, it's done and dusted. It will get dusted by Martian soil, and will need repairs over time. Will those repairs slow down production of a life-saving bit of equipment for another dome? Is it best to get a supply pod or ship to assist, or do you have the supply available on planet, but it may take time? There's more to look at than just have you got enough to build the next thing you want. You'll start off with the drones as mentioned, and it's best to make sure to use them to get a supply chain set up, as you'll need this to support even a basic dome with a small amount of settlers. Construction is pretty standard, to other games, collect the resources and expand. Like with other Paradox published games, there's more to it than just building. You're looking at people's needs. They need jobs, living spaces and entertainment to avoid them having a mental break. That's where the game shines. Your decisions may have knock-on effects that you weren't thinking about. Things like realising that your dome's population is now elderly and not working, or having children, so who fills their jobs? But until they pass away, they'll still be filling a habitation. So again, dilemmas not problems, to quote Ryan Macbeth. And this is what the game gives you. A problem has a solution. A dilemma has multiple solutions, and none of them will be great. With the gameplay pretty much covered, time to discuss some of the other sections of the game. It's not just about your colony. Each game you play will have a mystery. Now you can pick which mystery your game will run with, or select random, But either way, this will throw encounters and tasks for you to complete that can have either great or catastrophic effects for your colony. Essentially being storylines for the game, these mysteries can range from war, AI revolts, all the way through to alien contact. Now, time for me to hold my hat for this. I've not played through many of the mysteries, as I've actually only been running a single playthrough so far, due to the building of my colonies and it being a long-standing game, but also did the moronic thing of not scanning as many anomalies as possible. To be fair to myself though, without wasting a transport rocket, it took a while till I could cross the mountains north and south of me. On a different playthrough, I will definitely be changing my priorities early game. Okay, so post-script writing haddock here, and in recording some further footage I did start another playthrough, and I'm currently dealing with the Metatron. No, not that guy, although he is very cool. But yeah, the Metatron is currently testing my colonists, firstly with an ion storm, taking out the life support at one of my domes, to ensure we have redundancies, and the will to survive. I'm currently being tested with anomalies to scan, so yeah, each of the mysteries lead to a completely different gameplay run-throughs. It's not just the mysteries that can cause upset for your colonists, you also have environmental issues to contend with, whether it's low temperatures, dust storms, or even asteroid strikes. Quick note, the domes hold up much better than buildings alone, but again, it gives you that dilemma. Do you use your limited resources on a new building, on a repair, or do you just keep it in case you're hit with something like an asteroid strike? So I mean, I've been waffling on for a while now, but what I want to get across is that both Take on Mars and Surviving Mars are worth your money. Now I know Surviving Mars was given free on Epic, but if you don't have it in your library, it's definitely worth the money, especially on a sale. Both games have a beautiful art style, whether it's retro-style camera styles invoking images of the Cold War space race in Take on Mars, or whether it's a fantastic vastness of Surviving Mars where your droids look like ants until you zoom in and watch their little arms lifting and dropping items. Let me know how you feel about this type of combined episode, and I've been Leering Haddock. Until next time, see you later.